on A View from the Outside this week.
Yeah, right, Fred.
This
On a
week
view from
being
the
the
outside.
7th of June, 2025. We continue in the series Going Down Memory Lane to jolt us to remember issues
And
of
then you could
grave
cut off
importance
from the
which
a
have been
bit of
raised
and so on.
publicly in the past. Remember, in episode 1, on the 26th of April 2025, we featured the purported investigation related to the allegation back in 2015 that the Prime Minister of St Vincent and the Grenadines had more than 19 million US dollars in bank accounts overseas. Remember also in episode 2, on the 10th of May 2025, we looked at human trafficking. And in that episode, we featured the Parliament Girls. The Parliament Girls were said to be girls, or a group of girls, who were unemployed, young females who engaged in sexual favors and other activities with men in power and influence, primarily with parliamentarians, to survive financially. Don't forget that our programs are available from the archives. Today, we go down memory lane with episode 3, and we look at Remember. 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 And remember is a topic which we covered on Saturday, the 13th of July, 2019. In that topic, we highlighted a variety of different issues which are crucial for Vincentians to always remember. Today, in taking you down memory lane and asking you to remember, we look at some of the atrocities which have taken place over the years under and by the regime in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. We know that in the interest of time, we could only mention some of those issues. So we intend to stimulate your thought so that you can use your own initiative and remember other atrocities under and by the regime. Remember Glenn Jackson? He was the Prime Minister's press secretary and personal aide who was brutally murdered over 19 years ago. At the time of his death, his wife pleaded with the regime that the family do not receive any scapegoat justice. There was a promise by the regime of an investigation with the help of Scotland Yard and other regional and international agencies. However, to date, the family of Glenn Jackson remain without justice. Perhaps they did get scapegoat justice. Remember Mr. Jocelyn of Cane Garden? He was affectionately referred to as the servant of the Lord. He publicly and vehemently opposed and berated the regime on radio almost daily. He subsequently disappeared without a trace in December 2011. Remember Othniel White? He was the customs guard from Union Island who, on the 4th of June 2012, was shot and killed during a shootout involving Venezuelan nationals and Vincentian police officers in an incident of suspected cocaine dealing. Remember, some of the Venezuelans who were arrested during the incident were later released to return to their country without a trial, leaving the family of Othniel White never to receive justice for his death. Remember Cornelius John? He is someone, an ordinary man, who was beaten and shot on his own private property. That incident took place over 4 years ago in April 2021. And up to now, Cornelius John has received no justice. It is reported that those who carried out the atrocities or the atrocious acts against Cornelius John are closely connected to the regime. Remember the late Michelle Andrews? She was the police woman who was assigned as a member of the security detail to guard the Prime Minister and his family. In January 2008, she accused the Prime Minister of rape and sexual assault in the wee hours of the morning when she was carrying out her duties at his residence. Following those allegations, she was vilified and said to have been treated with scorn, even by members of her own organization, the police force. Up until her death, earlier this year, on the 23rd of January, 2025, she never received justice. Remember Yogi Farrell? It is the belief of many that a grave injustice was done to her under this regime. She is the young woman, an aspiring model, who was destroyed. She spoke out about a relationship which she said existed between her and the son of the Prime Minister. A relationship which she said ended in acrimony. After that, she was prosecuted for allegedly using abusive, insulting, and offensive language against the wife of the said son of the Prime Minister. When she appeared in court without any evidence or proper justification, the magistrate sent her to the mental institution. It is said that there she was administered with a variety of different drugs. And since then, she has never been the same. Do you know where Yogi Farrell is now? Do you know what she's doing? Remember her. Remember Bigger Biggs? He is the man who almost a decade and a half ago now had his multi-million-dollar business unceremoniously shut down and destroyed by the regime. His business employed over 60 people. They all lost their employment upon the closure of the business. Bigger Biggs is the man who has been economically assassinated by the regime. He is the man who continues to fight for justice. Remember Bigger Biggs. Remember Adriana King. She is a teacher, a single mother who is being targeted, prosecuted, and in the eyes of many, persecuted by the regime, all because she chose to speak out and speak up about the atrocities of the regime. Her prosecution and seeming persecution continues as the regime continues. I'll say that again. Her persecution and seeming persecution continue as the regime continues to have her on half pay, seemingly with no end in sight. Remember all the public servants who the regime, by way of their vaccine mandate, fired from their jobs and left them and their families to suffer mental distress and economic hardship. Remember the teachers, the nurses, the police officers, the customs officers, the doctors, and all of those who were fired by the regime because they refused to allow the regime to violate their bodies by forcing them to take the COVID-19 vaccine. Remember that the distress and hardship that these people continue to suffer could have ended already. However, the regime refuses to end their suffering. Remember the state of dilapidation throughout the country. Police stations infested with vermin, school buildings infested with lice, roads, especially feeder roads to farmers' lands, in constant disrepair for years. Remember those things. Remember all the support and aid provided by international sources following the volcanic eruption of La Soufrière and Hurricane Beryl. It is alleged that things like mattresses, etc., are stored not in the best of condition to be given out as bribes for your vote just before the election. Remember, no matter what they offer you or promise you, you deserve better. Remember relief monies which poured in. It is said that those monies are far from being accounted for. Remember the missing monies from the nation's purse. It is said that such monies have increased way beyond the 95 million, which was originally talked about. Remember the abuse of NIS money, which now puts the future of you and your loved ones receiving your pension at severe risk. Remember farmers and traffickers once lived independently in St Vincent and the Grenadines. They were said to be king. They fed and schooled their children without going through any indignity of receiving assistance in that regard. Well, the regime stifled the agricultural sector, leaving many farmers and some traffickers destitute and reliant on crumbs from the regime. Remember, just before the last election in 2020, you were given what they called love boxes. It is believed that those so-called love boxes were used as bribes to secure your votes during that election. Well, election is fast approaching again, and they do not even disguise the bribe as a love box this time around. They have decided to treat you like pigs and dump plantains to your school children, school children, to scramble and grab to bring home. The outside world has seen the recordings of the disgraceful scramble for plantains. And people cannot believe that the dignity of a people is so severely disrespected and trampled on just to try to secure votes in an election. Such scenes of indignity bring to mind a quote from the young, dynamic, and inspirational president of Burkina Faso, Ibrahim Traoré. He said, and I quote, "True leadership isn't about wielding power. It is about protecting the dignity of your people." There are so many other things to remember. And as we said earlier, there are many more atrocities which have been carried out under and by the regime. You know some of them. Remember them, discuss them, and ensure that the regime is not given the opportunity to ever do such things again. Or remember, if they're ever given that opportunity again, after next elections, it could be you and your loved ones. We now ask you to make the promise that the English author and poet A. Milne wrote about years ago. He wrote, and I quote, "Promise me you'll always remember you are braver than you believe and stronger than you seem and smarter than you think." Vincentians, promise yourselves to always remember. Until next week, this is Burton Horn with a view from the outside, with a reminder to send your feedback as usual to the email address aviewfromtheoutside@hotmail.com. We also invite you to visit and like our Facebook page at A View from the Outside, and also subscribe to our YouTube channel at JMB Horn, A View from the Outside.